meeting. Treasurer report, Marcus. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good.
Excellent.
Minutes from our meeting in October. I'll receive them in our packet. Any additions and or corrections?
Yeah, I'll move them as presented.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Okay, I thought you were gonna skip to that guy. Okay. Paid, it's quick, yeah, yeah, no, I mean, exactly, it's 1 month, so it's page 36 is the start. There's just a small decrease in current assets from prior month, a corresponding decrease in the total assets from prior month, and liabilities have also decreased about $500,000 from prior month, and the fund balance has increased about $200,000 from prior month. That's page 36. Page 37, like the last report, we're starting out with a lower budget than prior years, about $324,000 lower on the revenue side than prior year for a budget, and about $236,000 lower than prior year. At this point, it's 1 month, so the numbers speak for themselves. You can skip 38, page 39. Our quick assets are down $64,000 from prior month, receivables $285,000 lower, and the allowances down below are about $19,000 higher than prior month. Total assets down $330,000 from prior month, $330,000, excuse me. Long-term liabilities down about $400,000 from prior month, and total capital on page 40 is up $213,000 from prior month. You have your Lyle promised to give us the new report on page 41. That's just for 146 Arsenal. So that those numbers speak for themselves. And as we go to page 47, proud to say there's nothing delinquent on the RLF. So we've cleared off a couple recurring events there. That's good. And Taste of Design is...
Don't expect it to last.
Well, this is a snapshot in time.
We'll
This
take
is a
it.
snapshot in time. You gotta
Yes,
take
it
the
is.
victories when they come, Lyle.
Yep.
Don't throw water on it.
Taste of Design is back 2 months.
Well,
It's a
they have
significant-
since paid 1
Okay,
month.
it's a significantly low amount, and all of this is way less than 1% of total receivables. And then you've got page 48, 9, and I believe 50, which kind of give you snapshots of all the, all the different accounts and their status. That's the treasurer's report. I would make a motion to accept it as presented.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. This time I'll ask that we move the agenda to the visiting attorney here.
Is Rob Stein here?
Yes,
Is he?
he is.
All right. Do you want me to do an introduction first before we have him come in? What's going on?
Sure.
The IDA entered into a leaseback back in 2012 in a pilot with the Morgan Townhouse communities. There's 2 projects. They subsequently conveyed those to new LLCs, Preserve at Autumn Ridge 1 and Preserve at Autumn Ridge 2. We consented to that at the time. And Preserve at Autumn Ridge, both developments are currently owned 100% by Morgan Townhouse Communities. They're currently going involved in a reorganization which involves the infusion of some cash by independent parties to help them with their current liabilities. After the reorganization, Morgan Townhouse Communities will continue to own approximately 80% of the LLCs, and the other entities that are doing the cash infusion will own approximately 20%, but will be taking control of the operations. So Morgan will end up being a passive owner at the time. The principal lender is in agreement with the reorganization, and they're willing to consent to it, but they're requiring the IDA to join, execute a joinder agreement basically that says this reorganization does not impact our leaseback or our pilot. And that's what their current request is. That's why it's on the agenda. Rob Stein from Morgan in Rochester is here to answer any questions about, you know, the reorganization and what's involved. So, in a nutshell, that's what's going on.
What's the alternative, if
Well, if we don't agree to the joinder, the bank's not gonna consent to the reorganization, which I think means the developments are in trouble.
in trouble what way, because of the pending lawsuits?
Probably, I mean, they don't have enough cash to take care of all their current liabilities, and that's what the reorganization's all about. I think this gentleman that's here can probably answer those questions. I don't know, you know, completely those answers. I do know that they've gone through the same drill in Monroe County. They've got 5 projects there. The Monroe County IDA just considered it as reorganization and approved it as well, so.
And this only affects the name of the entity
It
and the
doesn't,
position.
it
that we
doesn't
have.
affect the name at all. The ownership of the project remains in the existing
Okay.
LLCs, but the ownership of the LLCs is changing, and the control of the operations is
It's the
changing.
control.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it doesn't really
Let's
affect.
ask Mr. Stein
Yeah.
in, and that way, you know, he can help answer.
He can answer those questions. I just can give you the breakdown of what's going on legally.
How far into the pilot are we?
2012 was when we entered into it, so.
Yeah, it's, I think 3 or 4 more years, 5 years, 5 years at the
And
most.
it's been current.
Oh, they've been current all the time. It's paid, pilot monies are paid out by an escrow agent, so they're.
It's not
very
changing
current.
in this, how.
It's not changed, nothing on the pilot has changed, so.
This is Attorney Stein from Rochester. Good morning.
Hi.
Please use my chair there, relax. I won't go around the board, that would take so much time. This is our.
Rob, I'm Joe Russell. I just gave a brief summary of what's going on, if they may have questions for you.
Absolutely. So thank you all for putting this on the agenda today. We really appreciate it. Morgan Properties is really looking forward to getting involved with these properties. We've started management of them, plan to put a significant amount of capital into them, and this is not a company that holds things and flips them. The company was started in 1985 by a gentleman out of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, Mitchell Morgan. He still owns the first 3 properties that he bought in 1985. They are long-term holders and operators of properties. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the transaction or Morgan Properties.
Mr. Stein, is it possible to talk about the practical implications of what's being proposed? What does it mean to the projects we're seeing?
So what it means to the projects is that there's a transaction involving a company called Morgan Properties out of King of Prussia. Unfortunately, it's very confusing because the people that own it now have the last name. There's absolutely no prior relationship between the two. But essentially what's happening is that there is no deed transfer. It's just it's a reshuffling of the interests in the entities, an investment by Morgan Properties into the joint venture that's going to own these properties.
Our concern would be the impact on the pilot, of course.
Yes.
And Joe has explained that the proposed change really has no impact on that. Can you maybe expand on that notion?
Yeah, the ownership entity that owns the property is the same entity that's going to continue to own the property. There's no deed transfer. There's a management change, but essentially the entity is just being renamed. It is really all that's happening. There are some transfers of interest, but it's far less than 50% of the interest. So it's really just the same entity owning the same property.
For those of you on the board who may not remember, the community has a significant initiative to provide housing for Fort Drum. We were under the gun at one point to do so, otherwise at least one of the brigades would have left our community and gone elsewhere. And the Morgans stepped up, among others, to help fill that gap. And since then, this project has thought to have been probably the best, certainly one of the best of the projects in Jefferson County in terms of providing the level of service that we all anticipated for our soldiers and families. And at the moment, it still has that reputation, and Mr. Stein, I'm counting on the fact that would continue.
That would continue. There's, I just looked at the budget today, there's over $1 million budgeted for investment in the property in the first year, so these are not, Morgan Properties is not a company that just comes in and seeks to improve and flip. They're a long-term holder and owner and manager of properties.
Is there a reason you guys didn't just buy the whole thing outright, or why didn't you just leave investor?
The nature of the transaction, when you buy something outright, obviously there's significant tax implications for the current investors.
How's
Is
the,
this the kind of nature of your business, doing this sort of thing, where you're gonna invest in?
So, before this transaction, Morgan Properties was the 19th largest owner in the United States. This transaction jumps them up to the 5th largest owner in the United States. So yeah, this is right in there. This is the kind of property they love. This is the kind of location that they love, and this is what they do.
It might be helpful, Mr. Stein, to know that we welcome investment in our community. So there may be a future for us in another area. We really extend that invitation to have them examine some of the projects and activities that we have going on.
And there's always, value in having a concentration in a location as well, so, absolutely.
when that property started out, it was for housing. Has the success of that, what are we in year number 6?
6 or 7.
Has it been, are you at 90% occupancy? You're diverting some space down there from living to, not retail, but service providing, right? There are some medical offices down there.
I don't have the occupancy numbers in front of me right now. I can certainly
If you don't, I don't.
get those, but this is definitely.
Has that been successful for the most part, is hitting their
Yes.
goals for leasing?
I think, again, my recent exposure to it is it's one of the most successful by virtue of its level of occupancy in the community. So, and I think the people that I talk to anyway are very delighted with the service and performance they get. And that's the only reason I asked Mr. Stein about how this transition would affect the service provider, because at the moment, it's first class, as we understand it.
Yeah, and there's, the property, as you said, it's 7 years old, so there's time for some things that need to be done. And I know there's a full seal coating plan for year 1 for the entire, and that's a fairly sizable property. You're talking about probably a $100,000 project right there. There's plans for smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector replacement with 10-year battery, so people don't have to worry about changing batteries. Those are all things that are in the budget.
But for the most part, it's gonna stay residential.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's certainly no plan to change any of that.
Well, they've been good neighbors, and so we anticipate that.
Good to hear, and we very much hope to continue that.
And the agency would say to you that if there's a way that we can be of service to assist, because providing service for our troops and families particularly is very, very important for us.
We
Sure to help.
appreciate the invitation.
No other questions? Move the resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Consent and loan modification agreement. Any other questions?
And just clarify this, that this affects phase 1 and phase 2.
The document you received was only for phase 1, but they are requesting that you approve for phase 2 as well, so that we don't have to go back and reapprove again.
For
Has the
today.
document been modified, Joe, that it reflects that I just moved?
No, I don't believe so. All we received for the paperwork was for phase 1. I understand that there'll be identical paperwork coming for phase 2. And you can amend your motion to include phase two if you would like to.
I would amend my motion to include phase one and phase two.
I'll amend my second. And Joe, is it starting on page 97? I'm trying to figure out which of that's the one that's titled joined or by an agreement
Yeah,
of.
joined, it's the one that's titled joined or by.
Yeah, okay, so it's page
JCIDA,
97
yeah.
of our packet.
It's all part of the consent, the overall.
There's multiple
Yeah.
consent and
Yeah.
modification forms in here, but this appears to be.
The only
correct.
document that's applicable is the joined or agreement.
Okay. Because it really isn't a resolution, it's just a contract instrument that we're modifying somebody to sign.
We're basically just saying that this transaction will not impact the leaseback in the current pilot.
Other questions? On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thanks for your long trip and
Yeah.
short meeting.
Yeah, no,
Thank you for coming up.
no worries at all.
Could have called in.
Better long trip than a long meeting.
Thanks for coming to Jefferson County.
Usually I'm
Wisconsin.
whitewater rafting when I'm here, so.
Go do it today, there's probably class 99 rapids. We might not see you again for a couple
It's
months.
white water and white snow.
It is beyond white water.
It's spitting snow and ice.
That spillway is,
It was snowing.
it's
Yeah,
one
it
of the
was
worst
when I
I've
came
seen.
in. I refused to look at it.
Snowing?
Yeah, I saw Denise
It's
when I
got- it's like a
first
wet
walked in
snow,
and I didn't
yeah.
recognize who
It's
she
not
was
sticking
with, but,
really, but
okay.
at least not
This
yet.
time I'd like to motion to-
Can I just
I
wonder-
have to add that disclaimer.
Are we gonna have an executive session with the Y, then move to an executive session with just us to talk about this? How do you propose we go about it?
We have to
There
vote
will
on
be
that.
discussions amongst us, not, the Y shouldn't be privy to everything.
You stay in executive session.
You can just stay in executive session.
Yeah,
and
just
excuse
use
them.
that, just excuse them and stay in it.
Seems like there should be a public introduction of what's going on and then.
Well, your motion to go into executive session has to state what it's for.
I need to visit the bedroom really quick.
I guess I would, are you making a motion to go into executive session?
Well, I just wanna make sure, we need to have an executive session to talk with the Y.
Mhm.
And then I think we need to be allowable to have our discussion in executive session.
Absolutely,
Just
because
amongst
the
the board.
purpose of the executive session
Okay.
is to consider the
When it's
potential
appropriate-
disposition of real property.
When appropriate, I'll make the motion to go into executive session to discuss real estate transactions. Is that the appropriate time?
Potential sale of real property.
Potential disposition of real property,
And this
sale or
should be for,
disposition,
Okay,
the recorder to come back, shouldn't we?
probably.
yeah, probably.
I'm gonna grab a snack.
I'd like to make a motion, we
He's
two
here.
or more Newman's own organic coffee.
We'll bring some over.
Chairman, I would move we enter into executive session to discuss the disposition of real estate.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the public, and we don't make it, including in that, our buildings and ground chairman is allowed to stay with us along with, everybody guests from
Right.
Hawaii,
I assume you want council to stay too.
council and staff. Yes, absolutely.
Please.
On the motion to go into executive session, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?